everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney 2. In our last episode, we got introduced to our quote-unquote interviewer friend. Shit. And we also pinned him to be the owner of the pen. Time to see how far this rabbit hole goes. Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter is claiming that Miss Brett implicated Ray somehow. What on earth could have happened in that hut? Alright. Yeah. Next. 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 Alrighty.
Hold it.
What question? What did he say? Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Broiderman? Ugh! Out with it, you yokel hack. What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman? Well, in truth, I've been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles in the sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for grown men. But then all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, young girl panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air. Ray. I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Hosonaga saw Mr. Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin! But what did you ask her, Isosuke-san? I asked her, who did this to you? Don't protect us any longer. How did the woman respond? She didn't! She said nothing in response. But when in the stand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony. I will! Okay.
Hold it.
So you tried to find out who the culprit was. He who asks a question is a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labeled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever. However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond. Is that correct? I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. He was ignoring me because of my stupid mustache. Because I'm Japanese. Oh dear. Sosuke-san has really developed a dislike for the English, it seemed. Having read the report on his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia. Well, the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all. Did she, Mr. Broiderman? Well, yes, alright. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. She just lifted a trembling finger and pointed in the direction of the defendant.
Hold it.
She pointed a finger at the defendant. Is that really true? It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, the student girl standing on the far side of her. You want to ask who did this to you? The Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut, which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today. did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony? What? Fiddlesticks, I say. That is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese. Yes, of course, the Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. Somewhere in the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all. You mean that your memory of events and the direction of which the victim was pointing on are both unclear? Yes, that's it. Unclear. It's very, very unclear.
Objection!
Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. The woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because as the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It's now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could have committed this crime. I'm inclined to agree, and in the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial. No! No! Headline's writing itself. This dashing lawyer's hopes dashed. 92 points across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition. This is a serious blow, Susato, unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claims with evidence. The judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over. That's impossible. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet. Impossible though the task may seem, we've no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somehow in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need. Yeah, she told us how things went. She was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was empty but for herself and Red? Somewhere amid all that information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer. Simple, there was a hole in the back. So, the gallant Yoko student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised. In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter. This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. I know how.
Objection!
Excuse me. Oh, you're scared. Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being. To what end, Consul? The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection!
An alternative theory, none exists.
Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime. What? And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time. By mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction. This is fiction! Fantasy! Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, Consul, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So young Ryotaro Naruhodo. Yes, Your Excellency? You will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Well, the only other place. Out here.
Take that!
Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett, concealed in this location here. Are you mad, Counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut. Hey! What? Order! 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 But student lawyer Naruhodo-san Esquire! That makes no sense at all! He just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. Oh, I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about, I can swear to that. Dude, you've missed the point. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there's no way he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut. Actually, Prosecutor Ouchie, there is a way. Hey! And, in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. You're bluffing! You're bluffing, you yokel! The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut? Crime scene photograph.
Take that!
The original photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach.
Objection!
Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing. I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to. Consul, once again I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Ding dong, there's a gap right here.
Take that!
Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds. No! I can't see any such thing! It's true the hut in question had 4 walls as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them. That is extraordinary! Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And of everyone present at the scene, there is only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right to many memo-san, it could only have been you. Die!
Objection!
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies in almost the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume as part of this farcical scenario that the assistant was a knife thrower? You never know. Maybe he was part of the circus. Oh wait, he's Japanese. Of course not. We're not! If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside the beach hut I confronted Miss Brett, but she just sat on the stool at the back of the hut smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. A stool? Have another look at the photograph. The slit in the reed screen is right above the stool. My word! So, in fact, the victim was killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back, delivered through the reed screen. Ah! Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively, but then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut, before the defendant, Membani-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Memo-san, I take it you don't deny the charge? This is absurd! That will do. It would appear we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Membani's son, is innocent of the crime. Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave. I must say, I've never been more proud. Oh, this can't be! The Ouchie clan can't. What of my growth? My growth of hope? It wasn't an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't. I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict that... Oh, what do you want? Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established the victim was stabbed from the outside of the hut, and that's where you were. And no one but you was in that place at that time to have had his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction. So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed, it doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, the trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else. What are you talking about? Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up. Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness. What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course. The poison? Let's ask this professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that a deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? It's been shown that poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right? That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign this particular poison was used. I see. So presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed. Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes. If she'd been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood. Ah, how refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely, it matters not a jot who stabbed whom and whose back with whose blade. Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
That can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I'd already...
Objection!
Forgotten already, have we? Yokel. During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your site assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever. So let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right? Ow. Where does this leave us? How in that case did the poison enter the victim's body? There is an undeniably obvious answer. The lady most likely imbibed it. You mean she drank it? Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked into the sandy beach of the floor of the hut. Gee, she was poisoned the same way as the other guy. The poison could have been slipped into either. Well, what do do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. They'll make a great front-page shot. Aye, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the women, would I? I mean, it's been established already.
Hold it!
Established? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe given the person who established it was you. Let me capture those wide eyes. This prime press fodder this is. It would seem this trial is not destined to end yet after all. I hereby call on the witness to give further testimony. That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency. You claim it to be impossible that you are the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim. I'm a journo and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now because that's many memoism. For a brief moment I thought I'd illuminated the truth. Alrighty, we're nearly done with this. Alright, this should be the last one. Complete innocence. I stabbed the English woman. And it's the very fact that I'm innocent. Because why would I bother to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't gonna punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done. So, you admit it then, that everything happened as I described. That you're the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the reed screen. You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back. I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. Complete innocence, huh? As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after me own heart. You're implicating Ray again. She's the one who gave the poison to the Englishwoman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! This journo here is off the hook. The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, he need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently, stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical. And therefore, his reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. It's all quite logical. That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last! This is unbelievable. And after I made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he going to get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel. Very well then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in the field. And we will do that next time.